Hare Yashodanana Brajajana Rahajana Yashodanana Brajajana Rahajana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janamala Girivaradhari Gopi Janamala Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhare Radha Giridhare Shri Radhe Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Hare Krishna. Reading from Prabhupada Lilamrita. The chapter is entitled Swami Invites the Hippies. It was 7 p.m. Srila Prabhupada entered the temple dressed in a saffron dhoti, an old turtleneck jersey under a cardigan sweater, and a chadar around his shoulders. Walking to the dais in the rear of the room, he took his seat. The dais, a cushion atop a redwood plank 2 feet off the floor, was supported between two redwood columns. In front of the dais stood a cloth-covered lectern with a bucket of cut flowers on either side. Covering the wall behind the dais was a typical Indian madras with Haridas crude painting of Lord Chaitanya in Kirtan hanging against it. Srila Prabhupada picked up his cartels, wrapped the cloth straps around his forefingers, and looked out at his young followers sitting cross-legged on the burgundy rug. The men were bearded, and almost everyone wore long hair, beads, exotic clothing, and trinkets. The bulbs hanging from the ceiling diffused their light through Japanese paper lanterns, and Navajo God's eye symbols dangled from strings. Prabhupada began the ringing 1, 2, 3 rhythm, and Shyamasundar began pumping the harmonium. Although the harmonium was a simple instrument, a miniature piano keyboard to be played with the right hand and a bellows to be pumped with the left hand, no one in the Frederick Street store front knew how to play it, so it became simply the drone. Another important kirtan instrument, the two-headed mridanga from India, was meant for intricate rhythmic accompaniments, but even Mukunda could play it only very simply, matching the 1, 2, 3 of Prabhupada's cartels. There were other instruments on hand, a kettle drum, the pride of the temple, Hayagriva's old cornet, a few conch shells, and a horn Hayagriva had made by shellacking a piece of kelp he had found on the beach. Some guests had brought their own flutes, pipes, and bongos, but for now they let their instruments remain still and clapped to Prabhupada's rhythm as he sang the evening prayers. Prabhupada's Sanskrit hymn praised the Vaishnava spiritual masters. For each great devotee in the disciplic succession, he sang a specific prayer. First, he chanted the poetic description of the transcendental qualities of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, then Gaura Kishodas Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one after another. One prayer described Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as the deliverer of the fallen souls, and another praised Gaura Kishodas Babaji as renunciation personified, always merged in the feeling of separation and intense love for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada sang of Lord Chaitanya, the golden complexioned Supreme Personality of Godhead, who distributed pure love of Krishna. As he sang of Lord Krishna, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the distressed, the source of creation. As Prabhupada became absorbed in the bhajan, his body trembled with ecstatic emotion. The group on the floor sat swaying from side to side, watching him, his eyes closed in meditation, his delicate, practiced fingers expertly playing the cymbals. They heard the heartfelt minor moods and tones of his voice, unlike anything they had heard before. Then he began the familiar mantra they had come to hear, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And immediately they joined him. The horns and drums sounded, and soon all the other instrument players joined in. Gradually, a few at a time, members of the audience rose to their feet and began to dance. Prabhupada's followers stood and began stepping from side to side, as he had shown them, sometimes raising their hands in the air. Others moved as they pleased. Occasionally opening his eyes and glancing around, Prabhupada sat firmly, chanting, though his head and body were trembling. After 20 minutes, many of the young dancers were leaping, jumping, and perspiring as Prabhupada continued to sing, leading the dancers by the beat of his kartals. His eyes were closed, yet he controlled the entire wild congregation, playing his kartals loudly. The chanting and dancing continued, and Prabhupada approved. The kirtan of these hippies was different from the chanting of Indian brahmanas, but Prabhupada didn't mind. His standard was devotion. In his Radha Krishna temple, whatever he accepted, Krishna accepted. This was his offering to Krishna through his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Prabhupada was absolutely confident. Even if his young devotees didn't know how to play the harmonium keyboard or the mridanga, even if they didn't know that congregational kirtan should be done not in constant unison as they were doing, but responsively, and even if they didn't know how to honor the Guru, still, Because they were chanting and dancing, he encouraged them and nodded to them. Yes. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. A reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 29, entitled Talks Between Narada and King Krishnabari, text 32. दुःखेष्व एकतरेणापि दैवभूतात्महेतुषु जीवस्य न व्यवेच्छदः स्याच्चेत्तत्तत्प्रतिक्रिया दुःखेष्व एकतरेणापि दैवभूतात्महेतुषु जीवस्य न व्यवच्छेदः स्याच्चेत्तत्तत्प्रतिक्रिया दुःखेष्व एकतरेणापि दैवभूतात्महेतुषु जीवस्य न व्यवच्छेदः स्याच्चेत् तत्तत्प्रतिक्रिया 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 दुःखेषु in the matter of distresses ekatarena from one kind api even daiva providence bhuta other living entities atma the body and mind hetushu on account of jivasya, of the living entity. Na, never. Vyavacheddaha, stopping. Syat, is possible. Chet, although. Tat, of those miseries. Pratikriya, counteraction. Translation. The living entities are trying to counteract different miserable conditions pertaining to providence, other living entities, or the body and mind. Still, they must remain conditioned by the laws of nature, despite all attempts to counter these laws. Purport. Just as a dog wanders here and there for a piece of bread or punishment, the living entity perpetually wanders about, trying to be happy and planning in so many ways to counteract material misery. This is called the struggle for existence. We can actually see in our daily lives how we are forced to make plans to drive away miserable conditions. To get rid of one miserable condition, we have to put ourselves in another kind of miserable condition. A poor man suffers for want of money, but if he wants to become rich, he has to struggle in so many ways. Actually, that is not a valid counteracting process, but a snare of the illusory energy. If one does not endeavor to counteract his situation, but is satisfied with his position, knowing that he has obtained his position through past activities, he can instead engage his energy to develop Krishna consciousness. This is recommended in all Vedic literature. Tasyeva heto prayate tako vido na labhyate yad brahmatam upari yathaha tallabhyate dukhavadanyataha sukham kalena sarvatra gabhiraram hasa. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet Brahmaloka down to the lowest planet Patal. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time. Just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. Bhagavatam 1:5-18. One should simply try to develop his Krishna consciousness and not waste his time trying to improve his material condition. Actually, the material condition cannot be improved. The process of improvement means accepting another miserable condition. However, if we endeavor to improve our Krishna consciousness, the distresses of material life will disappear without extraneous endeavor. Krishna therefore promises, Kaunteya pratijanehi name bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Bhagavad Gita 9:31. One who takes to the path of devotional service will never be vanquished, despite all miseries of the body and mind, and despite all misery brought about by other living entities and providence, miseries which are beyond our control. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. The living entities are trying to counteract different miserable conditions pertaining to providence, other living entities, or the body and mind. Still, they must remain conditioned by the laws of nature, despite all attempts to counter these laws. Hare Krishna. This is when Mataji she texted me this verse. I was thinking, why did I agree to give class? Because this is one of it's I call it's in that 18.66 it's in the category of 18.66 verses that just abandon everything and just surrender unto Krishna. But anyway, I'm just speaking for my own purification and by the blessings of the devotees who are assembled here. Maybe I can say something that will inspire myself and inspire everyone. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. So this, Prabhupada says in that in that section from chapter 8, that right from Brahmaloka down to the lowest planet in the material universe, every place is a place of suffering. And it's not only a place of suffering, but it's also temporary. So Krishna has certified the material world as a place of suffering. And whatever Krishna says is true and timeless. So which means that it is true for all time. So at all time, the material universe is a place of misery. At every moment of time, it's a place of misery. So when the living entity turns away from Krishna and enters the material world, then it comes under the spell of material energy. And it is the job of material energy to fulfill this statement of Krishna that the material world is a place of misery. So all that material energy is doing is constantly giving us three kinds of miseries. We know the three kinds of miseries that come to us from other living entities, from our own body and mind, and from supernatural sources. So Prabhupada says in one purport in the Bhagavatam that at any point in time, we must be suffering from either one or two, or from all the three miseries. So no matter who we look at, externally they might appear to be in a really good situation. Their material condition might appear to be really good. But we can take it for sure that they are suffering from one of these three miseries. And so even for ourselves, we must know that at any point in time, we must be suffering from one of these three miseries. That's just how it is in this material world. And so we should not, so when that is happening to us, there's nothing to get, when we are conditioned souls, my Guru Maharaj says that the nature of the conditioned souls is to always blame, just to blame others and to complain. So we're always complaining that there's this suffering and there's that suffering, but that is to be expected because we're in the material world. So always one of the three of these miseries have always to be there. And if we're super unlucky, then all three miseries will come at the same time. But one, two, or three, they'll always be there in our life. And now because we are always miserable, we are always suffering from one of these three miseries. And the living entity by nature is Satchid Ananda. We are Satchid Ananda, not Nirananda. And because that's our constitutional position, so we are always trying to relieve ourselves of this misery. Like, who wants to be miserable? No one wants to be miserable. So if we look at our mentality, everything that we are doing in the material world is in some way or the other trying to improve our material condition. And the reason why we are trying to improve our material condition is because we are miserable. So we think that we are trying to improve our material condition, but actually we're just trying to relieve ourselves of some misery. That's what we are trying to do. So there's this famous verse from Chaitanya Chaitamrita that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying, Krishna bahir mukha bhoga vancha kare, nikatastha maya tare jhapatiya dhare. So the Bengali in this the Bengali in this verse is quite powerful. So what the verse is saying is that when the living entity turns his face away from Krishna, so because we are marginal energy of Krishna, we are on the fence. So what it means to be on the fence is that either we can flip this way or that way. So the spiritual energy is on this side and the material energy is on this side. So they are both very close to us. So the moment we turn away from Krishna, we are turning to Maya. And then it says Nikatastha Maya. So Maya is standing right there. Tare jhapatiya dhare. So jhapatiya comes from this Bengali word jhapar, which literally means to slap, like to give a tight slap. So it's translated as that material energy slaps the living entity down as soon as we turn away from Krishna. So as soon as we desire our own sense gratification, material energy slaps us down. And we get slapped down by one of these three miseries. So that's why we are always looking for something to make me feel better, something that is going to relieve me of these miseries. This famous example that Prabhupada gives. Also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives in the CC of how in medieval times, the prisoner, they would take the prison on a boat into the lake, and then they would dunk the prisoner into the lake. They would push his head down, and then the person would feel that he's drowning, and he's drowning, gasping for air, and then they would pull the person out and then allow him a breath of air, and the person would feel so much relief, and then dunk him down again. So that's our situation. We are dunked in, we're constantly dunked in these miseries, and basically we're just planning to just be able to come out, get a breath of fresh air, and then we get dunked down again. So Prabhupada is saying in this purport that we are forced to make material plans. Now just imagine if you're drowning, for sure, you will want to come up to get a breath of fresh air. So no matter how much, but the problem is that we can't stay up, because it's the job of the material energy to slap us down, to always push us down into the water. So here we are thinking that I'm going to try to make plans to be happy in this world. But actually, all our plans are just so that, let me just come out and get a breath of fresh air. Let me just get some relief and some comfort. Just let me allow to breathe and then get dunked again. So we're in such a miserable condition. So yeah. And when we're in such a miserable condition, we're so overwhelmed by life. Because it's like you make one plan to improve your condition, you make one plan to have better sadhana, you make a plan to do more service, you make a plan to have better health. But then you soon find that after some time, you kind of come back to square one. I don't know if that is others' experience, but that is my experience. That you always have to keep adjusting your plans, because it's like you're trying to move forward, but there is a force that is pushing you behind. So you have to put more force, you have to put more, you have to exert more pressure, more force. You have to be very dynamic in Krishna consciousness. You can't be like, okay, I've made this plan and now this plan is going to work for the next 2 years, 3 years. No, it's like you have to keep adjusting and you have to keep pushing ahead and ahead. Because if you don't push ahead, then Maya will push you behind and behind. And before you know it, you're back to square one. So as we are making our plans to improve our material condition, we are so convinced that actually this is the best solution. That if I do this, this will help to improve my material condition. And Maya is presenting us with so many options to improve our, to increase our material happiness and to reduce our material distress. And under the spell of Maya, we are thinking, yes, that these solutions will work. We're so convinced that these solutions will work. But the fact is that we're so overwhelmed by our material situation that we don't have the clarity of mind to be able to see that this solution is not going to work, that this is actually just another trick of Maya. So as we know, Maya has two potencies. It has the throwing potency and the covering potency. So Maya throws us in a situation and then it covers our ability to see that we are actually in this situation. Maya creates this illusion, no, that you're doing well and that everything is going okay and you're strong enough, your Krishna consciousness is strong enough and you'll be able to work through this. So this is the illusion that Maya creates for us. And under this illusion, we think that, yes, I'm Krishna conscious enough and I know how to work my way through this. And I don't need anyone's help, and I don't need any guidance, and I'll be fine. And then when we go ahead and we try to execute that plan to improve our material condition, we see that it didn't really do much. So we are back to square one. So that's the power of Maya. Maya's veil is very strong. So being covered by Maya, we pursue a solution, but all that we end up is in a different miserable condition. It's like Prabhupada often gives that example, we just shift the weight from one shoulder to another shoulder. So, and why does that happen? It happens because Krishna has certified right in the start that this is a place of misery. So all that you're going to be doing is just moving from one type of misery to the other. I know this is sounding like real doomsday talk, but what can I do? That's just what the Bhagavatam is saying. So Prahlad Maharaj says that as soon as we try, and this is even more demoralizing, that as soon as we try to improve our material situation, as soon as we even get in the plan making stage, our distress begins. So, and then Prahlad Maharaj goes on to say that why endeavor so much? Because the quota of happiness and distress that we are going to receive in this life is already packed in into this body. So we know from the nectar of devotion um, that there are different stages of sinful activity, and basically the material body that we have received now, it's this is the mature fruit. So let's say you go to countdown and you buy a fruit. Now you bought it now and you start eating it. Now, because fruit is not so expensive, if you don't like it, like if you find that this fruit is not up to the mark. Actually, I'll give an example. Recently, Soumya Mai was here, and she had a grape. She had a big orange in her hand, and the orange was looking really juicy. And then she peeled it, and she took a bite, and she was like, "Wow, this orange is looking so juicy." And she took a bite, and it turned out to be a grapefruit. And she was like, "Oh my God." And I'm sure no one from Wellington is listening to this class. So she gets her veggies from Rudram Prabhu. And she was like, "Rudram, I'm changing my veggie supplier. I ordered oranges and I got a grapefruit." So it's like that. So we go and we order something, we pursue a material solution, thinking that this is going to bring me some juice. But actually it just turns out to be another bitter fruit. But fruit is something, you can put it in compost, you can pass it on to someone else. But you can't do that. We can't do that with our material body. We've got this body now. And we have to pass our life in this body for how much ever time that we have in this body. And this body has come, it's a package. So our happiness and distress that we are meant to receive is already packed in to this body. And there's nothing much that we can do to change this. So now we can say, but once we get initiated and once we start practicing Krishna consciousness, then we hear that all our past karma is wiped out. We start with a clean slate. But actually, what Baladev Vidyabhushan states in his commentary on 729 Bhagavad Gita, he explains in that commentary that what that verse actually means is that what that actually means is that it's step by step. So you know how we have the analogy that Prabhupada gives that the fan is moving super fast and you turn the fan down. When you turn the fan off, it slowly turns down and finally it comes to an end. But actually, when you see that in action, like if a fan is going on and if I turn it off, within 10 minutes, no matter how fast it's going, within 10 minutes it will stop. So I don't know about you guys, but at least that's my conception of my karma getting wiped out in bhakti as well. I feel like, come on, I've been practicing I've been practicing not for so many years, for a few years. But why is my karma not wiped out till now? How long is it going to take for the fan to stop? But actually, Bharata Vidya Bhushan says that it's step by step. It's one sinful activity at a time, one reaction at a time that's getting wiped out. So it's a process. That's why Krishna consciousness is a process. We've, been here for anadi, which is like for time immemorial. We've been in the material world accumulating a whole mountains and mountains of sinful activity. So that's why it's taking time, step by step, for it to wipe down. And so that's why we have so many miseries. So in this material body, our happiness and distress is packed in. So there is not much point in trying to change too much. Now, this is a lot easier said than done because this is our mentality. We're in the material world to enjoy. And Prabhupada says in one of his purports that fruitive mentality, and sex desire, these two things, they are extremely hard to give up for the conditioned soul. And it takes a long practice of Krishna consciousness to give these up. So this is actually a fruitive mentality that I want to enjoy. that let me do this activity to relieve my misery. How will doing this activity bring me some comfort from material misery? How will doing this activity increase my happiness, increase my so-called happiness? So this is actually fruitive mentality. But we know that in the material world, everything is inauspicious. Anything that is not dovetailed with Krishna consciousness is inauspicious. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in speaking to Sanatan Goswami in that pastime where Sanatan Goswami is saying, that my body is full of sores and it's so inauspicious that, that you're embracing me. So Mahaprabhu says, as a sannyasi, it is my duty to view everything, equally. I cannot discriminate, because this idea that in the material world anything is good or bad is just an imagination. And then Prabhupada says that everything in the material world is inauspicious. And everything it's either wet stool or dry stool, but it's all stool. Just repeating what Prabhupada is saying. So Prabhupada is saying in this purport that instead of trying to improve our material situation, we should engage in Krishna consciousness. So we make the necessary material engagements. We make necessary material arrangements, whatever arrangements we need, so that we can perform quality sadhana, do our service properly, and associate with devotees. Because we have a material body, so we need to do things to maintain our body. But any material endeavor that we undertake, we should have this in mind, that how is this material endeavor going to help me improve my sadhana, increase my service, or improve my service, and help me to associate with devotees. That is how we should look at our material endeavors. Whatever material arrangements we are making, they should facilitate these three things: sadhana, seva, and sangha. And any material endeavor that interferes or impedes with these three things, then we have to look at that. We have to review that. That is this affecting the quality of my sadhana? Is this affecting the quantity of my service or the quality of my service? And is this affecting my association with devotees? So these are the three things that we have to look at when we look at our material endeavor. So we know Srila Rupa Goswami in Upadeshamrita, he talks about the 6 factors or 6 things that destroy our devotional service. And one of them is over endeavor. So how do we understand what is over endeavor? So anything that affects these 3 things is an over endeavor. And my Guru Maharaj, he often says that one thing, what is an over endeavor for one person might not be an over endeavor for someone else. So for some people, material opulence may come very easily, and for some people, it may not. For some people, it may be very easy to have relationships, and for some people, it may not. So we are just going through what is in our karma. But as I said earlier, that we have to try and keep this in mind, that no matter how someone else's situation looks, everyone is suffering from one of the 3 miseries. And that no matter how much we try to improve our material condition, at any point in time, we will be suffering from one of these 3 material miseries. So what is actually the best, what is the best use of our time? Then another trick of Maya is that if the Maya tells us that you will be able to practice better if you are in this material situation. If you improve your material condition in this way, you will be able to chant better. You will be able to, your mind will be more peaceful. You will be able to spend more time with devotees. It will be easier for you to do service. If you just make this adjustment in your material condition, you will be able to do these things better. But just what I found is that if we are not able to, if whatever we want to do in Krishna's service, if we are not able to do it now, it is quite unlikely that we will be able to do it after making that adjustment. So let me give an example, because this is, of course, not true in all situations. I'm just speaking from my personal experience. So for example, thinking like, okay, um, that when I go to India, when I go to the Dham, there'll be less material responsibilities. And so I'll be able to chant more rounds. I'll be able to read a lot. I'll be able to do this. I'll be able to do that. But then when I got to the Dham, I just realized that actually I can only do these things when I'm able to control my mind and my senses. Whether I'm in the Dham or whether I'm in Auckland, I still want to eat. I still want to sleep. I still want to talk. And so until and unless I have actually controlled these activities, no matter where I am or no matter what material condition I am in, I will not be able to do more devotional service. So our ability to execute devotional service is not affected by our material condition. We can improve our devotional service if we are able to control our mind and senses. And we are able to control our mind and senses by engaging in devotional service. So this is just something that I have noticed in myself. It's a trap, when Maya says that just make this adjustment and then you will be able to do more service. And I've also seen this, in others, that we think that let me make this adjustment to improve my material condition. But then when we do that, we don't realize that that new situation brings its own challenges. And then dealing with those, and then we just get caught in dealing with those challenges, and actually our Krishna consciousness does not improve. So when we are thinking of improving our material condition so that we can do more service, improve our sadhana, have more sangha, we should always do that under guidance. Because as I was saying earlier, we are so overwhelmed by our situation. You can just imagine, the person who is drowning, all that this person is thinking of, let me just come up and get a breath of fresh air. And that is our situation. We're just always in such a precarious situation that often our mind is just like, let me just improve my material condition. That's a very elevated stage of Krishna consciousness, where at every moment you're just thinking that how can I please Krishna? How can I please Krishna? That we are not thinking of ourselves at all. So that's why whenever we want to improve our material condition, we must always take guidance, because we can't see so clearly when we are in that situation. And improving our material condition doesn't always just mean improving our physical situation. It also includes our mind. So so we can do so many things to improve our mental condition. So for example, we can think, okay, I can just give my example. So so at night time when I come home from the loft, being there for the entire day, I kind of need something to wind down before I go to bed. And I have this. So basically, what I do is when I come home, I post something on social media for the loft for next day. But social media is so addictive. Once you go on it, it's not that you can just do that much and come out. Maybe that activity in itself takes like 20, 25 minutes. But now it's like, okay, I've done here. Let me just see what someone else has posted. And then that takes another 10 minutes. But basically what I'm doing in these 10 minutes is let me just improve the material condition of my mind. But I could have, gone to bed those 10 minutes earlier, or maybe I could have read for 10 minutes, or maybe I could have chanted for 10 minutes, or maybe I could have tidied up my room. I could have done something more productive in those 10 minutes. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that improving material condition doesn't always just mean, going out, earning more money, or just improving our physical situation. We also have to look at what is it that we are doing, at the subtle things we are doing to make our mind feel better. And and many times this can be quite subtle, to be, so we also have to be aware of that. Because the more we try to improve our material condition, the more things just get worse. So we're so fortunate, Brahmanda Brahmite Kare Kona Bhagavan Jeev. After so many, many lifetimes, we've come in contact with Krishna consciousness. And so now we should try and make the best use of a bad bargain, as Prabhupada often says. This opportunity is so rare, is so rare. We right now, if we are sitting here and if we're listening to this Bhagavatam class, it means that our material condition is good enough. We are in a pretty good condition to be able to practice Krishna consciousness. So no matter what our material condition is, no matter what our mind is saying, whether the material condition is good or bad, in any material condition, we have to chant Hare Krishna. There is absolutely no excuse for not performing our sadhana. That my material condition is too bad, or I need to do this, only then can I chant my rounds. Only then can I do some service, or only then can I spend some time with devotees. There is absolutely no excuse for these basics, no matter what our material condition is. Because we can always make excuses. That's just how, that's just the mind of the living entity. We always want to blame and we always want to make excuses. But actually, there is no excuse for following our sadhana, for following the basics of Krishna consciousness. And we have to see that, are my material endeavors impeding my basics in Krishna consciousness? Because if we are not even able to do our basics, if we are not even able to perform our sadhana, do our regular service, and have some time to spend with devotees, then our position is very precarious. But at the same time, not improve our material condition doesn't mean that we become fanatical and we neglect our duties. So we have our duty towards our body, because our body is given to us by Krishna and we are using it in Krishna's service. So we have to maintain our body to be able to perform our sadhana, to perform our service, to associate with devotees. So we need to maintain our body. We need to care for devotees around us. We can't use this as an excuse to be indifferent towards the well-being of devotees that are around us. We can't use this as an excuse to be lazy and not care for our families. We can't use this as an excuse to not care for Krishna's Lakshmi, to not care for Krishna's property. So everything has to be seen in complete perspective. But what I got from this, what I got from this verse is that the main thing is to actually be mindful of our mentality. That, am I doing this to improve my material condition, or am I doing this to please Krishna? Am I doing this to serve my spiritual master? Am I doing this to serve the devotees, or am I doing this to improve my own material condition? And what is the intention here? Why am I doing this activity? And I'd just like to end with what Krishna says to Arjuna in 241. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kurunandana. Bahu shakhahi anantasta. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kurunandana. What's next? He anantascha. Yeah, buddhayo vyavasayana. Yeah, so Krishna is saying to Arjuna that those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. So if our aim is to please Krishna, then we will have resolute determination. But if our aim is to improve our material condition, then our intelligence will be many branched. And then a few verses further down, Krishna says that those who pursue sense gratification and those whose intelligence is not fixed, it is not possible for them to have resolute determination in Krishna consciousness. It is not possible for them to achieve samadhi. And then Prabhupada says in the purport that a candidate who is fit for liberation, a sadhaka, is someone who has understood this and is willing to undertake the disciplines that are given by the spiritual master. So no matter what our material condition is, we have to perform our duties in Krishna consciousness. And that's the way we check that, are my endeavors to improve my material condition affecting my sadhana? The quality of my sadhana? Are they affecting my service? And are they affecting my sangha? Yeah, and then Krishna says that when we regulate, when we are regulated in our eating, sleeping, I don't know if mating is in that verse, but eating, sleeping, and recreation, then we can overcome all miseries. Okay, I'd like to stop there. Someone has any corrections, reflections, questions? Jai. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Anantapurti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.